Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. Most of my time that's not directed towards editing or League of Legends, well, I'm spending it browsing the internet such as Reddit. And just a few days ago I came across a thread that I found extremely interesting. The thread essentially was just a top 10 list of the best Korean solo queue champions in Diamond Elo for the current week. I'll link the Reddit post in the description below if you want to check it out, but keep in mind that one is a little outdated. To me it was very interesting because, well, I want to know what they're playing in Diamond Elo in Korea. I want to know what's considered to be the strong picks there. And I thought it would be a really cool idea to pretty much just share that info with you guys and essentially take that thread and turn it into a video. Now again, we'll be focusing on the best champions in Diamond Elo in Korea because for the most part, or in my opinion, Diamond is a rank that a lot of players, if they really focus and put their mind to it, can definitely attain. But at the same time, the Diamond rank is considered to be somewhat respectable of a rank. So seeing what's popular on the Korean server in Diamond Elo, which also a lot of people consider to be much higher than it actually is. So for instance, Korean Diamond equals Challenger NA can be absolute fantastic insight. So right before we dive into the first champion, I want to ask you guys a question. What champion ability do you think is the most overpowered? If you end up enjoying the video and you want me to keep updating this list as it changes, then definitely hit that like button. But without much further ado, let's go right into the 10th spot. So starting things off for this list is going to be Kalista in the number 10 spot. Currently she's sitting as the 10th best solo queue champion in Korea, obviously played in the ADC role with almost 55% win rate. I've personally always seen Kalista as one of the more deadly ADC champions because she has so much playmaking potential. Not only can her ultimate save a champion from so many situations and scenarios, but it can make so many different plays happen. Runan's Hurricane applies the spears on every single target, which does a lot of damage. She's very mobile with her passive, she can scout with her W. She's got a fantastically strong laning phase, and she power spikes into the mid game quite well. So to me, it's honestly no surprise that Kalista is at least somewhere in the top 10 of this list. But when it comes to what items are popular on Kalista in the Korean solo queue scene, well, you can see there, Blade of the Rune King, Runan's Hurricane, Steric's Gauge, and Mercurial Scimitar are the very popular ones. So if you're playing ADC, then Kalista is probably a champion you want to start practicing and upping up your mechanics with. And at the end of the video, guys, I will also be showing you the runes and the masteries that they currently use on top of the ability skill order. But then moving our way to the number 9 spot is Ryze, played either mid lane or top lane, but mainly top lane. Also almost at the 55% win rate benchmark. Now, Ryze being this high up in the Korean solo queue scene is very surprising considering he got gutted a few patches ago. But it seems like the very recent buffs to his Q damage were apparently enough to at least bring him back up to speed by a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, Ryze still has that passive that gives him a huge spike in damage. It gives him a shield, a very simple root being his W that's not a skill shot, so it's obviously very difficult not to land it on your target. The move speed, CDR, spell vamp from his ultimate is all absolutely fantastic as well, and it seems like again the base damage being increased quite drastically on his Q brought him back a little bit into the scene once again. And the popular items that everyone seems to be building on Ryze is the Seraph's Embrace, the Rod of Ages, Void Staff, and either your Merc Boots or Boots of Swiftness. And in terms of runes, masteries, and skill order, well, here is what they're running at the moment. But definitely don't be scared to maybe change it up just a little bit if you think it'll fit your playstyle better. And chilling in the number 8 spot is going to be an AD assassin, Talon. If the nerfs on Talon go through, this might be the last few seconds he actually has in terms of having a bit of spotlight. But regardless, while Talon is still in the spotlight, well, you should definitely be playing him because he is very strong. Sitting in the mid lane with a win rate of 54.71%, I mean, it only proves that. When it comes to having reliable assassin burst damage, Talon is definitely up on the list. He has a very low cooldown on his ultimate. He can get to his target very easily with his E instant blink. He has an insane amount of AoE damage in his skid for an assassin, which I think is quite fantastic. His Q ability is an auto attack reset that applies on towers, and Thunderlords gives him so much more burst than his skid that it's almost unfair. In terms of items, it should be somewhat self-explanatory: Youmuu's Duskblade, Mauve Malmortius, and of course the Tiamat for the resets. But Mercurial Scimitar is also a pretty good option. And just like with the other champions, here are the runes, the masteries, and everything else you need to know in order to play Talon like they are currently in the Korean server. And following Talon is a champion that, well, Talon absolutely loves killing, Kog'Maw. He still has not been nerfed, so obviously without question he's still a very strong champion. Still being played in the ADC role and sitting at just barely under 55% win rate, this weird looking creature is still wrecking face. His W is still offering the insane amount of bonus attack speed and overall just being a completely overstacked ability. And when you itemize to make use of the extra attack speed by getting a lot of on-hit items, so the Guinsu's, the Runaan's Hurricane, the Blade of the Ruined King, and even something like Zerker Boots, well, I mean, you are going to be destroying. He's essentially the bot of ADCs because you can probably AFK as long as your W is on, and you're gonna kill almost every single champion that comes and tries killing you as long as you are not severely behind. Now, the only bad things about Kog'Maw is, well, the fact that he is going to be getting nerfs relatively soon, so while he's still very strong and before the next patch hits, I'm assuming with some nerfs, well, you better start playing him and getting some of that freeload. And in order to win some games with Kog'Maw, you're gonna need to know the runes, the masteries, and all that good stuff, so here you go. And now in the number 6 spot in Korean Diamond Elo, we have Janna, finally a support champion. Sitting at 55.19% win ratio, which I think is very respectable, Janna is definitely one of the better supports because, well, she essentially offers you a free BF sword plus a shield to an ally with her E ability. She can reapply it very easily, she can stack Mejai's also very easily, she can also counter and peel assassin champions, tank champions. So when you put her with someone like a Kog'Maw, well, I mean, that's exactly what Kog'Maw needs. Personally, as an assassin player, whenever I'm facing a Janna as maybe someone like Yasuo, Zed, Talon, I find it so darn annoying. Whether it's her Q, whether it's the shield, or her ultimate, she has so many ways to keep the person she wants to be alive. And on top of all of that, she also offers free movement speed bonus for her allies as long as they're moving towards her. But a skilled Janna can easily reposition herself to offer this move speed to an ally when they need it. So the popular items when playing Janna, well, Sightstone, Frost Queen's Claim, Mikhail's, and also Locket of Iron Solari. And on top of that, here are the runes, the masteries, and the abilities to level in what order that you also need to know. Next on the list, we have Sion in the top lane with a 55.24% win rate. Now, one thing to note is the fact that Ryze and Sion both don't have an abundance of games played in the Diamond Elo, but the ones that they do have played are all quite successful. So it could be either that he's banned very often and or that he's maybe underrated. But either way, he definitely made this list because he's one of the tankiest champions in League of Legends. He has abilities that scale off of HP, he has a shield in his kit as well, he has a lot of CC, but what exactly do you think a tank needs that is vital for his team? If your answer was a fantastic initiation, well, then that's exactly what Sion has with his ultimate. But what makes Sion even better than that is the fact that after he does use his ultimate, he has so many ways to further combo his skills. For instance, you use your ultimate, halfway through it you finally hit a target, by that time you also had your W on. By the time you hit them, knock them up, you CC them for long enough to get your Q to the point where it'll knock them up once again. And by then you can apply your E ability to provide the slow and continue on the chase. And if all else fails and you end up dying, well, luckily for you, you can get right back up and hopefully get a vengeance on the person that just killed you. He's overall a very safe top laner who is picked in order to prevent the enemy top laner from snowballing. But here are the runes, the masteries, and the item skill order that you want to be using when playing Sion. Now, Pantheon is a champion I'm very excited about because personally he's someone I want to start playing more often. In the Korean server in Diamond Elo, he's mainly played in the top lane with a bit of jungle and mid lane as well. And sitting at a 55.56% win ratio, it feels like the current meta is just made for him. With Thunderlords being fantastically strong and Duskblade coming out, giving him even more burst damage within his kit, which already has a lot of damage, well, I mean, you are going to be annihilating your target. His laning phase is already known to be among the best because, well, his passive is fantastic. He has one of the highest base movement speeds in the game. The all-in potential is really high. If you drop below 15% HP, you are going to get instant crit with his Q or auto attacks. His stun is fantastic as well. The Q harass is strong. And then you bring in the fact that he has his ultimate to go and gank another lane from about halfway across the map. Well, I mean, it's like it was designed for solo queue. Now, one common thing to do whenever you're snowballing and you want to continue that is to put as much pressure as you can on the enemy team. And one of the best ways to do that is consistently tower diving them and putting them in a very difficult situation. And luckily for Pantheon, his passive absorbs one free tower shot, which is absolutely perfect. But regardless, for the items guys, Youmuu's Duskblade, Maw Mortius, Black Cleaver, and maybe something like Mercurial Scimitar are all very strong items on this champion. And here are also very strong runes, masteries, and the skill order for Pantheon. And finally, making our way to the top 3 champions of the Korean Diamond solo queue ladder, Malzahar. Here's another champion I personally did not expect to see, especially this high up in the list. This personally might make me want to start playing Malzahar more often in my solo queue games. So sitting at 55.82% win rate, almost 56, which is very high, also of course in the mid lane. Malzahar is a fairly straightforward and simple champion, but he has a lot within his skit in terms of just being able to dish out a lot of damage. Even though he does have no escapes, for the most part his laning phase is somewhat safe because of how fast and how early he can start pushing in the waves. In terms of a 1v1 duel, if your opponent doesn't have Q assess, well, chances are you are going to be winning it. His E ability essentially pushes the wave for you, gives you mana back, his minion that comes out deals a substantial amount of damage. And if you do the full combo by having the minion come out, attack the target you're using your ultimate on, which also has your E on them, with the W and the Q right before you use the ultimate, that is a lot of damage. But he also has pretty impressive synergy with items, for instance like the Liandry's Torment. A lot of dot damage, a lot of burst damage, he can control assassins and fed targets with his ultimate, he can keep tanks in line by again CCing them down or the percent damage from his W, or keep the assassins in line by using his ultimate on them. He builds fairly tanky, so he's not as squishy as most mages usually are. And for the most part, Malzahar, a very surprising champion for me personally to see, but one that's definitely strong and is fairly easy to play. But here are the runes, masteries, and skill order for you to play Malzahar successfully. And then moving along, we have in the number 2 spot another champion I didn't expect to see this high on the list. Annie. Very similar to Malzahar, Annie also has an abundance of damage within her kit, and for the most part she is very easy to play. But for the most part, Annie's kit is just better when it comes to initiation and burst. Annie can initiate with a flash Tibber stun, which is absolutely deadly, and she also just can do more damage in a shorter amount of time than Malzahar. But similar to Malzahar, she's also very strong in the laning phase because for the most part she can be played somewhat safe, but she can also free farm with Q since it's a low cooldown, and it gives you mana back if you kill the target. She can push in waves relatively quickly, and she's known to be quite the strong roamer, going top, bottom, or in the jungle and making plays elsewhere. So again, I am a little surprised to see Annie this high on the list, but I guess it makes sense. In terms of items, well, Abyssal Scepter, Rabadons, Zhonya's, and Morello's for that CDR and a bit of mana regeneration seems to be quite good. And also on top of that, here are the runes, the masteries, and once again, the skill order for playing Annie. And the grand finale of this video, the number 1 spot in Korean Diamond solo queue is going to Nidalee. To me, this is no surprise. Whenever I'm facing a skilled Nidalee, the amount of pressure that this champion can dish out and the amount of damage and the amount of just everything she can do in the early to mid game is ridiculous. She is just very strong, but she is also very difficult. So she does require quite a bit of practice in order to really get the hang of, but trust me, once you do, once you really understand how you should play this champion, you will dominate. There's a reason why this is one of Russia's best champions to play, especially in solo queue. So the popular items for Nidalee, well, you have the Runic Echoes with the Red Smite, you have Rod of Ages, you have Lichbane, you have Abyssal Scepter, maybe a Zhonya's. I highly recommend checking out a replay or a VOD of Rush playing Nidalee, or at least some other very respectable Nidalee player. There's a lot of really small things that you sort of need to know, but again, if you do know them, you are going to be a deadly force. And just like with every other champion, here are the runes, the masteries, and skill order when playing Nidalee jungle. And well, that about wraps it up for this video, guys. I mean, those are the best champions currently in Korean Diamond solo queue. So depending on whatever role you main, I highly recommend at least picking one of these champions, practicing them, learning them, and getting down the mechanics. Again, if you did enjoy this video and you want me to continue this and update you guys further when it really updates, then definitely hit that like button to let me know. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't and check out my other videos as well. And I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.